What's up guys? In today's video we are going to be talking about the rule of thirds. What is the rule of thirds, you ask? Boom, you see all these lines that I just put on the screen, these intersecting lines that are going horizontal and vertical? That is your rule of thirds. Your rule of thirds is broken up into 9 different squares, 3 quadrants, one here, and one here, and these 4 intersecting lines, or crash points as they call them. The rule of thirds is supposed to create a better viewing experience for your audience when it is used. Story time. So a long time ago in 1797, a man and artist by the name of John Thomas Smith, who was a painter, an engraver, and all-around super rad artist, decided that there needed to be a rule for composition in painting. So John Thomas Smith decided in 1797 that paintings and artwork needed to be more aesthetically pleasing. In order for that to happen, people needed to follow some fundamental rules. Thus, the rule of thirds was born. John Thomas Smith says, and I quote, "I should think myself honored by the opinions of any gentleman on this point, but until I shall be better informed, I shall conclude this general proportion of 2 and 1 to be the most picturesque medium in all cases of breaking or otherwise qualifying straight lines of masses in groups." That's what he has to say about the rule of thirds. So basically, if you are a gentleman in John Thomas Smith's eyes, you will use the rule of thirds, or else you risk being roasted in the afterlife by an 18th century painter engraver. But honestly, you should probably listen. He was a pretty rad artist. So fast forward a couple centuries and we are still using the rule of thirds in all modern cameras. Almost every camera to this date, from point and shoots to cinema cameras to action cameras, has a rule of thirds template built in that you can toggle on and off simply through the menu system, which will help you ensure that your composition is on point so you don't get punked by John Thomas Smith in the afterlife. Watch out, Wes Anderson, he's coming for you. So the question here is, should we be using it or not? And the answer is simple, yes and no. That sounds stupid, right? But hear me out, here's why. The longer you shoot photos, films, and video, the more rules, fundamentals, advice, and all-around bullcrap people are gonna try and shove down your throat. And all of it you have to take with a grain of salt. It's true, you have to learn certain fundamental rules before you can break them, but never let your artistic abilities be constrained to somebody else's advice, somebody else's guides, or somebody else's rules, because that only limits you in the end. Most of these rules are merely good as a baseline, helping you compose and frame your shots when you have absolutely no idea what you're gonna do when you get on set, or you have absolutely no idea what you're doing because you're learning. Because composition and framing, whether using the rule of thirds or not, can drastically change the emotion and feeling that your subject conveys in an image or a video. It can give feelings of grandiose, fear, confusion, and everything in between just based on your composition. Composition and framing is a huge part of cinematography, if not the most important part of it. So it's not something to take lightly, but once you learn the rule of thirds, then you can start developing your own style of blocking scenes and framing scenes and your own style of composition, because believe me, like I said, this rule is broken all the time. You guys hear this rain? Holy cow. Sorry if you hear that in the background. It might make a good soundtrack. So if you're either 1, just beginning your creative career, or 2, just trying to improve and get better with cinematography, you should definitely try using the rule of thirds on your next few projects if you aren't already, as it does aid in helping communicate a scene to your viewer by giving your audience exposure to all of the elements in your scene equally. So in every modern camera, if you want to use the rule of thirds, like I said, you just go into your menu system and you can easily toggle on and off the rule of thirds. Also, note that every photo editor, Photoshop, when you're cropping, Lightroom, Paint, any of these things that you could possibly use, all have rule of thirds built into them as well. That's the rule of thirds. I tried my hardest not to call it the rule of turds in this video, but John Thomas Smith says you should use it, even though he was born in the back of a Hackney carriage. But for real though, I have no clue what that means. They made it a point to say that on Wikipedia. So either way, put in the comments below and let me know what you guys think of the rule of thirds. Sub the channel if you're not subbed. Give it a like if you liked the video, because here on YouTube that does matter greatly. And as always guys, remember, just go shoot. I'll see you on the next one.